We're live.
All right, got it. So, good evening, everyone. We want to thank you for joining us. Those who are joining us right now, live. It's been a wonderful day. We thank God for His many wonderful blessings He has bestowed upon us, and for His goodness, His mercy. I mean, it's amazing what God is doing, what God has done, and we are truly, truly blessed. My wife and I had a chance to share this morning with a wonderful church here in Rochester, Autumn Ridge Church, and we were very, very blessed, and God truly came through in a mighty way. So we thank God for this day. We thank God for what He is doing, what He has done, and what He's about to do. This is Pearls of Living, and this is our Pearls of Wisdom series. But we've had some wonderful guests on. Matter of fact, since February, we've been doing this. Dr. Mack, we've been doing this since February. This is Pearls of Wisdom, and this is our Pearls of Living. We've been doing this Pearls of Wisdom series since February. And what it's all leading up to, we're leading up to a big time workshop that's going to be in early spring of 2022. And we're going to be giving out more information. We already have people lined up like Dr. Green. Dr. Green, really, I don't know if you even know Dr. Green. Dr. Elliot Mallory Green, professor, Greek and theology, Greek and Hebrew. He's going to actually start doing a class for us come January, but he's one of my major input people doing this workshop that we're doing in the spring. And we're in contact with people like John Piper. I mean, all these people who want to be with us, Curtis DeYoung, all these people, Taylor Chapman. I don't want to leave anybody out. LeBaron Hedgeman, LeBaron wrote a great book on the 501c3, and we've interviewed him on this particular show. So it's been wonderful, and we got a great reception from people of their perspective of what we are doing. So you're part of something that we're so happy to have you tonight to be a part of, and you don't even know yet, but we're asking you to be a part of this big workshop coming up. And well, you know me, I just call you and say, Mac, I need you, and you always showed up. You never let me down. Thank God for you. So I just want to kind of give you an update on where we are and why we are doing what we're doing. This is the ministry that God has given us. And God has always had a ministry for, even when in Mississippi, the ministry He gave us was Freedom Ministries. Right. Freedom Ministries, and from Freedom Ministry, really came Freedom Rock Christian Fellowship. And from that came Say So Ministry. So it's something that my wife and I, we've always done ministries. Through that ministry, we did the women's retreat every year, and you and your wife was aware of what we were doing there, and so we had to stop. We've been doing ministry. That's what we do. It's not just about being inside the walls of the church, but we do ministry. And I mean, everywhere from Mississippi to Minnesota to Africa to Israel, the Lord has blessed us, and even you've been to Israel too. So I mean, that's something we're gonna talk about tonight as well. But God has blessed us, and it's amazing, man, how far this thing has come since we first got to know each other down in Meridian, Mississippi. So let me say tonight, I am happy to have you. And I mean, I'm just no one, and I want to say to all those who are listening tonight, we have what I consider as one of our, should I say, the best preacher in the United States and maybe even the world. I'm just telling you all, I'm real when I say that. And I can say that because I know where he come from. I know what he's done. I know what he's doing. And to say that, man, is just, and I feel good about saying that. I mean that from my heart. I appreciate you. You've done outstanding work. And listen, I've heard you so many times do outstanding preaching. But when I heard you in Jackson, Mississippi, at the Mississippi Convention, they brought all the Baptist convention together, and you was at Dr. Jerry Young's church. Man, did you? I mean, and you read the text, and I said, "Oh Lord, he gonna flop." That's it. I said, "There's no way he's gonna be able to do this text tonight." But man, not only did you do the text, but you just enlightened, and I want to say just destroyed it. So by the time you got finished, number one, it wasn't a dry eye in the house. Number two, it wasn't nobody sitting down. and even I was like, how did this man do that? I know where he come from, but seeing where he is now, man, that was outstanding. So, I mean, I could account for all the many other times. And, you know, even when you come to Minnesota, people in Minnesota love you. And we know what you've done every time you come to Minnesota. But I just had to relate that Jackson, Mississippi, and Dr. Jerry Young's church. And, you know, everybody who was somebody was there. All the dignitaries were there. And when you announced your text, I heard groans across the room. They're like,
I knew that would be the response that I would get to. And but I knew what God had placed in my heart for that service when they called me. When they called me, God led my mind to that text right there. And I knew that it was going to be one of those unusual texts, but see what the Lord did as a result of just listening to him.
man,
that was a good night, man, and it was good to see you that night. You know, we've been through a whole lot, man.
Listen, by the time we finish tonight, people gonna know we've been through a lot together. But I just wanted to share. My wife, she asked me, who is he? Clinton McFarland. That's what we have tonight, y'all. Pastor Clinton McFarland. I was gonna get to it, but I had so many other things to say before we got to that. But you all, we have with us tonight, as I said, one outstanding preacher, the outstanding preacher of the country, Pastor Clinton McFarland, my friend, my brother. But I just had to tell you about that Jackson sermon, and we'll get to more about that pretty soon here. But Mac, we've been talking in this Prayers of Living series with Prayers of Wisdom. We've been, you know, my whole thing is we're better together. And I tried to show across the country and across the past 8 years of my being president of the State Baptist Convention and being president of the Council of Churches and of Transform Minnesota. I've tried to show that we are better together. And I don't just talk it, I try to show how we can do it together. Yeah. So that's how we came with this series, Prayers of Wisdom. And we've been bringing on different people to talk about relationships. And so last week, what really started back in August when just before Deisha got married, and Deisha got married, you know.
Oh yeah, congratulations.
And what we was doing counseling with her, and we was with her, she and Lamar, and we was doing a whole lot of stuff built around relationships and marital relations, and that's basically what we built our series on. But then last week we came back and we came to Matthew chapter 19, you know, where Jesus talked about marriage and divorce. And then I said, now I can talk about marriage and talk about sex of marriage. I said, but I know somebody, and Patterson was on last week too. He said, yeah, Doc, he's the one. I said, I know somebody who can talk about divorce. Matter of fact, he wrote a book on it and how to come back. You know, although Jesus said, what God has joined them together, don't let man mess with it. But sometimes it don't always happen like that. Yeah. So I wanted you to kind of, you know, come on and talk about that tonight, but we're not going to start with that. We're going to, by the time we're done, we're going to go through that. But I wanted to just kind of have that as a beginning point tonight. So I got to hit up myself. Can we just begin with a word of prayer? God, how we thank you for this night. We thank you for this day. We are so excited to have our friend and our brother with us. And God, I know that you're good. And we thank you for that. And help us this night that we can help somebody. By the time this program is over, help us that we might help somebody. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
So I want to kind of preface that to say that that's what we are, what we've been talking about in relationships. But before we get to marital relations, let's go back to, you know, to Clinton McFarland. People know Clinton McFarland as a preacher par excellence. As a, you know, people used to just know you as a hooper, that you could hoop. But now I want to say people know you now, Mac, as a preacher. They know that not only can you close it, but you can also begin it. So you are a beginner and an end closer. And I'm proud to say my friend and one of the best I know that can do it. So we thank you for taking that time of your busy schedule to join us here tonight. And like I said, we love you for that. You know, my wife and I, we love you all. We've been friends for a long time. And we thank you for joining us. And we just thank you for the relationships that started way back in our reading days. So let's talk about, oh, she told me to stop hitting the table. I'm sounding like I'm preaching. Okay, I'm not going to hit the table anymore. let's do this, man. Let's talk about, since we know Clint McFarland, the preacher. A lot of people don't know Clint McFarland. They don't know your humble beginnings and how you got where you are. And I want to talk some about those humble beginnings so people can know that I don't care where you may be in life right now, God can use you and take you to that next level.
Yeah.
So let's kind of talk about your humble beginnings. Is it Shibuda, Mississippi?
Shibuda, Mississippi is where I was born and raised. And let me just say this, Pastor Russell, that what a joy and a delight it is to be with you on tonight. And hello, Miss Teresa. Keep him straight over there.
That's our job.
Yes, indeed. And she's been doing a fine job of that. But thank you for having me tonight, and all of those persons who are listening tonight and who may be even listening later. I'm just delighted because of where I started and where God has me now. You know, Billy, my dad told me something when I was in my teens. He said that it is not where you're from that makes you somebody. It's where you're headed. And God really started me from humble beginnings, and I still have that in me. You know, I'm from Shibuda, Mississippi, and you from Columbia, Blue Springs area. We're both from small rural hamlets, and we still have that. I still have that in me, although I live now in Metro Atlanta, and I've been blessed to, man, I'm serious, to travel all over the world,
literally,
preaching in many different countries and many continents, and virtually almost every state in the United States. But I still feel like Clinton McFarland from Shibuda, Mississippi, not having anything to brag or boast about other than God's goodness and how good he's been to me, because where I am, God brought me, and what I know he taught me. And I think that is important for anybody. I don't care where you start, never let where you are define who you are. And once God blesses you to get to a certain point in life, never let it change you. And that's one of the things, man, that I've always admired about you, because you've been greatly blessed, have pastored great churches, and every church that you've been to. So we're talking about me, but listen, I learned so much from you. I told my church this not long ago, and I shared with them the pastors who influenced my ministry. I told them that my father influenced me as a preacher person, but when it came to ministry, you were literally my first influence as it relates to doing ministry. I knew how to preach, you know, knew how to do all of that, but really knowing how to do ministry, when you and I hooked up, when you were pastoring in Meridian, Mississippi, and how I watched you. So I want to thank you for that, and really, you know, admire you for that. But I thank God for where I am and what he's doing. And I just encourage everybody, whatever God places in you, you may have some setbacks, and I know we're going to talk about some of those setbacks and some of those challenges, but if you keep moving, you'll make it to where you're destined to be.
You brought up Shibuda and your humble beginning. Now, really, before you were a preacher, you were a musician, right?
Musician, and then moved from there quartet singer, because you know you and I first met.
Yeah.
We actually first met when I was about 18 years old, and I started traveling with the Christianaires, and you were with
you was Paul.
That's right. And I bet you cannot remember this, but the first place we met was in Tylertown. I bet you can't even remember that.
I remember that little church in Tylertown, Mississippi.
Tylertown, Mississippi.
Yeah.
I think that was my first concert with the Christianaires. We were at a small town in Tylertown, Mississippi, and the Sons of Stars, we know them better as the Russells now, but the Sons of Stars, you all came right before us. And it was ridiculous how y'all treated us that night.
Well, you know what? At that little church, I'm gonna show you how much I remember it. That was the first night that actually when I was leading this song, this fast song. I can't remember the name of it. Maybe I Came to Jesus, something like that. And I called Chavez up. That was the first time I called him up to actually help me. And we were swing leading on the song. And you know, because I knew the Christianaire was coming up and that kind of, so we, you know, and we got full of the Holy Ghost and everything else. But then, yeah. But you know what happened. By the time we got done, y'all came up, it was over. It was like we got to do something. but those were good old days.
Those were the good days, Billy. And then those were, for some reason, the simple days. And I thank God for God has been good to me. As you well know, he's been good to you. But sometimes I be honest with you, man. Do you ever miss that simplicity?
I miss it.
Where, you know, it's just simple. It's, you know, I can't explain it, but sometimes my mind go back to those days, the simplicity of worship and ministry. Don't have to worry about all this technology and all of the technical things, and we just go at it, you know. And so sometimes I think about that.
Man, I remember that night, that church was packed. I mean, packed wall to wall. You couldn't get in there. And it was the Sons of the Stars and the Christianaire. And that, right. I remember that night like yesterday. So seeing the humble beginning, you come out on the keyboard, and after seeing you on the keyboard, the next time when I heard you actually singing, I said, not only can he play, but he can sing. So next thing I heard, Foxworth. You remember Kevin Foxworth? Foxworth, that's right. He had you to come preach at his church outside of Prentice, Mississippi. Yeah, I'm trying to think of that little town, but yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. It was Spring Hill Baptist Church. Just built a new church. Yeah, Spring Hill Baptist Church. That's what it was. And he asked you to come down and you preach. And no sooner you got finished, he called me. He said, "Man, there's this young fella you need to hear." So this young fella come to my church and just preach my folks crazy. I said, "What's his name?" Because I didn't know who you were. You know, I knew you was on. I seen you on the keyboard, but I didn't really know you as a preacher. Right. And he said his name is. He said Dwayne McFarland. I said Dwayne McFarland. So I knew you as back then. We knew you as Dwayne McFarland. That's correct. But, I mean, but your name is Clinton Dwayne. So, so we knew you as Dwayne. And then I said, "Man, I got to get with this guy. I got to get to know him, and get him to do some ministry with us." And at that time, I was in Monticello, and but then later on, when I actually came to Meridian, and I was in Meridian at Mount Olive Baptist Church, and that's when we really got to know each other. So let's kind of talk about what happened. How did that really come about? That we got to know each other. We began to talk about ministry. And I think I had a lot to do with you doing your first CD. You did. Okay. Yes. Well, you know, when you came to Meridian, I was in a little town called Pachuta, which was just a few miles from Meridian. And some kind of way we were at church, and you and I got to talking, and we reacquainted ourselves, one with the other. And, you know, and then the friendship. So it was, okay, we got together and we started hanging out. And really, I'm gonna be honest with you, how we got really close. I don't know if you want me to tell this or not, but I am. But when you were in Meridian, your church was like doing so well until honestly, a lot of other pastors wasn't wanting to deal with you. Right. They felt you had built a major church at Mount Olive, and it was like the largest thing in town. And I've never been that way. You know, my dad taught me, you know, when a person is blessed, you don't envy them. You know, if you can, hey,
connect with them, but you're not connecting with them in order to get anything, but to learn. And so when you extended an olive branch to me, I think you invited me to preach for you at Mount Olive. And man, I never will forget, like 100 and some people joined the church that week. It was just, it was ridiculous, you know. And you and I just developed a friendship from that, you know, started going to conventions together. And then a few years after that, I bought my first, well, not my first home, but I bought a home in Meridian. And, you know, we started exercising, hanging out, and learning ministry and all of that. So that's how our friendship grew. But it grew because, you know, a lot of other guys, I hate to say it, but it's true, they were just quite negative because of your success. And I just said, man, I'm just not that kind of person. I want to know, okay, what is it that a person is doing? Let me learn from you. And I think that that's always been my success in life, is my ability to learn from other people. And I learned so much, man. And then, of course, shortly thereafter, God moved me to Columbus, Mississippi, moved you from that church. And of course, you went to Minneapolis, Rochester, that area. And of course, we still stayed in touch and in contact, and the friendship just never died.
Man, well, you know, before we move away from that point, I want to thank you. I will never forget that revival. I was principal at Kate Griffin Middle School. And man, I mean, it was grades 7, 8, and 9. And we were having a severe, I mean, when I say severe, a severe gang problem. And to the point where, I mean, I had been threatened and everything else. And I had gone into some of those camps, trust me, and talked with some of the leaders. And they had told me to get me to leave those young people alone, because I'm trying to convert them. I'm trying to get them changed. And it's amazing what happened that week when you showed up. And in revival, when I asked you to come out, because I knew you could relate to them, how your message illuminated everything I had been talking to those kids about. So those it was 130 some kids who came that week.
Yeah.
They were kids that came from that school and in that area. And they were some of the same people who ended up being great people at that church. So they didn't just come and then just go after that week was over.
Right.
But it came and they ended up staying. And right now, a lot of them are still at churches in Meridian right now. Yeah. So that was a very prophetic week. And I mean, I know the Lord led me to get you to come to the revival, because I was at my wit's end. I like, what do we do with these folks? You know? And I got a new song coming out called Jesus is the Answer every time. And so that showed me that particular week, I mean, that Jesus is the answer, because I had tried everything. But when you come through there and did what you did and actually preach, and I got people to come to church, and it started from one person inviting somebody else to come. And back then we were doing 5 nights with me.
Yeah, Lord.
So by the time
long night.
By the time we reached the 5th night, I mean, the place was packed out, and it was mostly young people. And
man, the altar was flooded every night. And there again, Billy, I'm talking about the simplicity of ministry and of preaching and our approach to worship. People who are not what we call churched, you know, as Rick Warren talks about the churched and the unchurched in his book, people who are unchurched, they don't know all of the rules and regulations that we have levied upon them. They just want the relationship. You know, they're searching for a relationship with a person. And of course, that person's name is Jesus Christ. And that's, I think, the reason why that move was so major, because ministry, you know, back then we didn't have like all of the video equipment. I think somebody may have had a camcorder or something, you know.
Camcorder, that's what it was, yeah.
You know, that's about it, but no live stream, no lighting here, no, choreographed choirs and all of that. We just did it. And God just blew on it, his breath, he anointed it, and people, here's what the Bible says, as you well know. And Jesus said, and if I be lifted up, I'll draw all men unto me. And so I think that when we get back to just lifting him up, then that's when the people will be drawn to the Lord Jesus Christ.
Amen. And you know what? And I thank God for that successful ministry that you had there in Pachuta.
Yeah.
And from Pachuta, God led you to Columbus.
That's correct.
Southside Baptist Church.
That's correct.
And that's what, when you asked me to come up and do revival, that's why I met Ronnie Patterson, by the way, who's the new president of the State Baptist Convention. I met him at your church at Southside.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, so I had to put that in. So thank you for introducing me to Ronnie Patterson.
Pastor Patterson, Ronnie is just a great guy. He and I became friends because he was pastoring there in Columbus at that time, and probably 2 or 3 minutes from the church where I was pastoring, and he and I became friends. In fact, Ronnie did the revival before you came, and right before I got there. You did, I think, my first revival or my second or something like that. Ronnie was doing revivals at that church prior to you and I, getting there. But God moved me from Pachuta. I was in Pachuta for 7.5 years. And I still say, Billy, one of the best churches I ever pastored was John the Baptist Church, my first church in rural Mississippi.
It was an outstanding church. Outstanding. I remember preaching that. I mean,
you preached for me there.
It was a preacher's church. I mean, it was that kind of church.
Yeah, I remember you preached there, and I think, did Teresa get on the piano or something?
Yeah, then? She got a piano. She helped me close it.
Yeah.
She was my main musician back then. She helped me close it.
I know, I remember. And
she knew my keys.
Right. She closed you out, and then God moved me to Columbus. And of course, that ministry took off, and God blessed there, and you came there and preached for me. So, you've been everywhere I've been.
Man, you know what? And you know what I thought about it? I came to Columbus, to Southside, and not only did I meet Ronnie Patterson there, but one night when I was getting ready to preach, and I think L.W. Bozeman came, and then one night you had this Bowen guy. I mean, you let L.W. sing one night ahead of me. I was like, what is McFarland doing? and then you had John Bowen to pray. And me and Ronnie was somebody that asked me, I said, who in the world is that praying?
That was Joe Bowen.
That was Joe Bowen. I said, don't you know I got to preach?
Yeah, nobody wants Joe to pray.
No, I know I didn't. After that, I don't know how I'm going to preach behind all that.
Well, you did. You did. It lit a fire under you, and you came on and just lit that house that night. But yeah, that's where a lot of, and that's where you met Joe Bowen. I think John was at that time already in Minneapolis.
He was already in Minneapolis, Greater Mount Vernon.
And Ronnie Patterson, and the good old days, man. Yeah,
and that's a whole nother story, how you introduced me to John Bowen after I got to Rochester. But just before we get to that, you did an outstanding work at the church in Pachuta, but then you continued that work in Columbus.
Yeah.
And the Lord bless you during that time you were there to build an edifice. I won't call it a building. I mean, you build an edifice, and really you were able to bring your people down to the church we had built in Meridian.
Right.
And I was able to say, Mac, here's the plan. Y'all go ahead and build it. And you build that building, and you took it to another level beyond Mount Olive. And the Lord helped you to grow that church, to build that church. Isn't it something how the Lord let you get to a certain point of building a ministry, then they say, okay, it's time to leave.
Yeah, it's amazing. But we are led by him. We are his servants. And we don't build ministries for us. We build ministries to the glory of God. I tell my staff at Grace all the time. I just told them this past Wednesday. Although I'm the founder of the church, although, everything we have emanated from God through me, it's still his church. And one of these days I'm going to have to walk away and leave it, and God will give it to somebody else. And so I've always kept that in mind, even when I built, because I had guys that when I left Columbus, they were like, man, you built all that. How are you going to leave all of that? It's not mine.
That's what they said about me in Meridian.
Exactly. People told you that. It's the Lord's church, and I am just a steward over what belonged to him. And if I'm a good steward over what he gives me, then he gives me more. And if I'm not a good steward, he takes from me that which he's given to me. And so the church, and you played a part in that, man. I'm telling you, you played a part in all of my ministry. The church I built in Columbus is a replica of the church you built in Meridian. And I was so amazed by that building. And I called you and I said, well, we're in the process. Our church is too small, as you well know. We were having 2 services and you couldn't get in any of the services. And I was putting the deacons in the baptistry, and then the little children would have to sit on the floor at the pulpit, and folk would be all around the wall.
I remember how it was at revival. It was so
man, and folk would drive up and look in and see they can't get in, and they were leaving. And that was happening twice on Sundays. And so I knew we needed to build the church, and we started raising money. And I called you, and you told me who to talk to at Mount Olive, and we toured that church. I took some deacons there, and long story short, that is the church that we built, and then turned around and built the Family Life Center. Total replica of what you did in Meridian, and the Lord blessed in Columbus, and we were blessed to fill that one up and, do 2 services and just kept growing. It's just amazing how God has blessed ministry through me. And I'm just thankful.
But, and the wonderful ministry that happened there in Columbus, but then there was a transition. And God moved you. Matter of fact, he was already preparing you for the move to Atlanta, because you have been doing revival for years and years over in Atlanta at this particular church. Yeah. And you knew that the Lord was moving you to another place, even while you continue to work. Isn't it? It's funny. God has a sense of humor. He's already preparing you for somewhere else, but he got you still working here.
Yes.
And he had you still working there. And you were doing such an outstanding job there at Southside, but then stuff started happening. I mean, and I don't know. I mean, you can go into that and how your book came about and that kind of stuff, because but between your move from Southside to the church in Atlanta, I mean, let's go in that period right now. Before we get to Grace, there's a period between Southside and the first church you went to in Atlanta, Georgia.
Well, when I was in Columbus, Billy, and I talked to you about this quite a bit too, you were one of the persons that I would share with you. I think that my ministry came under attack. I preached today, matter of fact, I just preached today from Acts 28 verses 1-6, where Paul was was shipwrecked on the island of Melita, and he was snake bitten. And I talked about surviving snaketanic attacks. Now, I know snaketanic is not a word, but Satan, I dealt with how Satan works. He loves to work through snakes. And that snake that was in the fire that latched out and latched onto Paul, Paul wasn't the only one putting wood on the fire. but the snake attacked Paul because it was really a demonic snake, in that it was a snaketanic or a satanic attack. And Satan, I believe, always attacks the one who has a God-given assignment. He knew where Paul was headed, to stand before Caesar in Rome. And he had already stood before Felix and Festus and Agrippa. And Satan tried to kill him by wrecking the ship. You remember that?
Oh, man, that's what I'm reading right now.
That'll preach, man. And then he made it to land, and they're warming up. It was cold, and Paul is helping to get wood, and he gathers wood. And the Bible says that a snake launched out of the fire, not out of the wood that Paul had, but it launched out of the fire and latched onto Paul. And it was a snaketanic attack. Well, that happened to me in Columbus. God was blessing my ministry. We were growing. Church was filled to capacity. Then we went to a new service, second service, and we started filling up there. I'm on television at the time, on national television, all over the country. I'm traveling all over the country. My ministry was being blessed, but my marriage was failing. And Satan attacked me in the area that meant the most to me, you see. And it was in my marriage, because I'm very family oriented when it comes to marriage, fatherhood, raising children. And that's where he attacked me, in that area. So my marriage was on the rocks, to the point of divorce, and even went through a divorce after, trying for many years to work it out. I will not go into the details or the reason and rationale behind the divorce, because I will tell you this: in marriage, and anybody who's listening to me in marriage, it's never just one person. I mean, we both played a part in the demise of the marriage. And I've never said anything negative about her, because when it's all said and done, she is still the mother of my two children. And that ought to mean something, right there. However, the marriage did not survive. And I think that it was Satan after my ministry. You see, I'll give you something else, Billy, that I just shared with my staff. Did you watch football today? Any football? Well, you used to be a coach, right?
Yeah, I coached, I played, I coached everything.
So football, Doc, listen, the enemy is really not after the quarterback. The defense is not after the quarterback. He's after the ball.
After the ball, right.
He's after the ball. And when the quarterback releases the ball, notice how the enemy leaves him alone and goes after the one that's carrying the ball.
The ball.
You see, one of the things that God taught me is that Satan is not after me. He's after my ministry. He's after the word. The word is the ball. That's why as pastors, you've pastored for 40 plus years, we've been under attack. You hear pastors going through problems with their family, going through this and that, and everybody want to look at them with disdain and disgust, not realizing that we are under more of an attack by virtue of the ball that we are carrying. And what we have to realize, that it ain't personal. It ain't about me. The quarterback can't say, y'all leave me alone. They are after the ball. So if you get the big head and think, oh, they're after me. No, they're not after you. Once you give up that ball, they after whoever has the ball. That's the object of it. And that's what Satan, is after. And so he attacks my marriage. Not that he's after me, he's after my ministry. And he really thought that it was going to destroy my ministry. But I stayed at Southside 2 years after I went through a divorce, and kept trusting God, depending on God, and the ministry kept growing. I'm serious, to the point where, I mean, it was greater than ever, but because I trusted God. So the book that I wrote, Life After Divorce,
Chef, can you put a copy of that up so everybody can see that book that you actually wrote the book?
That's the book that I wrote. Is, if you can see, is forwarded by my friend, Dr. Jamal Bryant, who had just gone through a divorce as well. He and I were going through a divorce, you know, at similar times. And so he did the foreword because he could understand what I was dealing with. And so when I was going through that, God led me to write about it. Now, the book didn't start as a book. I had no intentions of writing a book. What I was doing, I had learned that when you're going through something, journal your feelings. And I was just journaling. It started as a journal, and I'm just journaling, so to speak, my feelings, and it kept growing, and I've got pages and pages and pages. And then God spoke to me and said, Clinton, somebody else is going through the same thing that you're going through. I want you to write about it, and I want you to present it, because it's going to help somebody else. And if you notice, the title is Life After Divorce, the story of one pastor's triumph over the tragedy of divorce, because it was designed to destroy my ministry. And if my ministry was destroyed, then I'm destroyed, because all I know is ministry is who I am. It is what I do. So that's how the book came about. And I started on it in Columbus, and years later passed. I meet Tamara, my wife, and we start dating. And at that point, forget about a book. I mean, I'm all right. I met the girl, you know, I met the girl.
You met the girl.
Yeah, so, you know, I meet her, and, you know, Tamara really was so instrumental in nursing me, so to speak, back to health. And, you know, I am where I am now.
Well, look, thank you for that. And that book is still available right now. I want you to go into details. I want people to see that you wrote the book, and if they want to know details, they can go on Amazon.
Read the book.
And read the book.
They can go, they can go to Amazon still and get it, or they can go to my church website, www.gracebaptistatl.org, or they can Google, you know, my name, and a lot of the stuff that I've done will come up. But if the easiest way to get it would be to go to my church's website, www.gracebaptistatl.org, and they order it, and then my bookstore will send you a copy.
Good. So I want to encourage the people to, if you want to know the whole story, get the book, read the book. So that was not my intention to have him tell the whole story, but I want you to see the success that he's going through right now. Even after going through a tough situation. So the book will help you to really know that it's not just about divorce, but it's about after going through whatever, you know, God can bring you out. And
then there is life, Pastor, after divorce. You know, divorce is similar in so many ways to a death. If people who have never been through a divorce can understand, it's like a death, but it's the kind of death where the person is still living. You can see them, but you can't have them, you know. And I have a chapter in the book that I wrote about an emotional roller coaster. And I've always encouraged people prior to getting married, you know, this is not just for divorcees. This is for folk who are contemplating marriage. They are already in marriage, because you can see, I outlined many of the mistakes that we made. One of the mistakes I made, Billy, is the mistake that so many of us as pastors make. we have a call on our lives and we are anointed to do a thing, and we put so much time in that thing. I loved my church, I loved the ministry, and I just put so much time in it. And I honestly, there were times that I neglected my wife at that time and my family for ministry. So I look at some of the mistakes. We're so busy making a living and not building a life. But I talked about that in the book, and it would be good for persons who are newlyweds, constantly, or in a marriage, to look at some of the mistakes that I made, because I believe that a smart person will learn from their own mistakes, but a smarter person will learn from the mistakes of others. You don't have to make the mistake. You learn from somebody else's. And so you can read the book and you can learn from the mistakes. And I'm very transparent in this book as it relates to many mistakes that I made and how you can, navigate around many of those forces that would seek to destroy your marriage.
I want to say I read the book, and I used the book on a number of occasions in marital counseling, plus in people who were going through divorce. I'm on the verge of that, and I probably saved some marriages as a result of like you said, learning from the mistakes, and I was able to share that with people over the years. So I want to thank you for such a great writing and being so honest with it, and that's part of the reason why I came up with my GFC person. I'm a GFC pastor, God, family, church, because I realized you can put so much time in church and neglect your family.
Right.
And that you're fruit on and don't do a good job with your family. And so therefore I know I got to be God number one, but I got to do a great job with my family. And then that made me excellent for my church. So,
and one of the things that I did learn from you, Billy, you and Teresa, and my wife and I, Tamara and I, we do this. We work ministry together.
Right. That's why I'm getting to that, man.
Yeah.
How you're a success right now, because when Greater Friendship came down there, we saw the teamwork.
Teamwork, man.
Yeah.
We on the team. Wife. Yeah. So we do ministry, and my former wife, mother of my kids, was not ministry oriented. Good lady, wonderful lady, good mother, and all of that, but not ministry oriented. And I talk about in the book how opposites attract, but they don't always make a good marriage. And you need the person with similar interests. You need listen, man. This is the God's truth. I know somebody's gonna hate what I'm gonna say now, but before you get married, you almost need to interview that Negro.
I'm gonna say amen to that. You need to interview.
Amen, Doc. You need to enter this. I interviewed Tamara, and Tamara interviewed me. Man, this is no lie. This time around, I was like, okay, how long you been in church? What do you do in church? And she was answering, and what do you think about paying tithes? I'm serious.
Yeah.
I was like, do you believe in paying tithes? Oh yes, I pay my tithes every Sunday. And Doc, I'm just checking them out. I'm checking them out. What's your credit score?
Yeah. That definitely be bad. What's your credit score? Yeah.
And she said, well, I don't know, but I got good credit. Can I pull it? Because, I'm like, okay, I believe in paying my bills on time. Do you believe in paying your bills? I'm serious, Doc. Tamara and I had that conversation because love is important. But there are so many forces that are out there that will break up your marriage. Listen. Love, I did a post, I was telling you about it the other day. It was about Miles Monroe, talked about, and in essence, here's what he said. Love is not enough to keep you together. But Miles, will go so far and he'll rub the wrong way. He said, you need knowledge. Knowledge is important. And I posted that on Facebook, and I had some theologians, I would suppose, That ain't right. That ain't right. I didn't, and because I don't debate people on Facebook, one of the things I don't do, I don't post stuff to argue. I'm a preacher of the gospel. If you got a problem, I had to even inbox one guy and say, hey, Doc, wait a minute, man, we're preachers. If we're going to discuss this, let's do it in the inbox. The world don't need to see us debating. Well, that ain't right. Miles Monroe is a heretic and all of that, and since I didn't debate, there is a passage of scripture. I can't think of where it is. I think it's somewhere in Peter, where it talks about the husband dwell with your wife in knowledge. And here's what Miles Monroe said. He said, people go to divorce court in love, but their marriage didn't survive because they didn't have knowledge of the person that they were in love with. You see. So my first wife and I were in love, you see. But she didn't have knowledge of me, and I really didn't have knowledge of her, because there were some things, Doc, that when we went through a divorce, I ain't gonna lie, I was like, man, I didn't even know she was like this, And it's amazing how you can be married to somebody, but you don't know them until you go through some real challenges. And so with me and Tamara, we have knowledge of each other. Now, we still have challenges because I don't care who you marry, it's still going to be some challenges there. But our goal now is to learn more so instead of, and we're madly in love. I love my wife dearly, but I'm seeking more of knowledge, because when you have disputes, it is never about love. It is always about, well, I didn't know this would bother you. I didn't know you didn't, and people are divorced still in love, but they never develop the knowledge of each other, knowing how to live. You and Teresa have been together for a long time. You love each other, but you had to get knowledge. She had to know you. You see, you have to know her, and you get knowledge of a person, and then you learn how to navigate by way of knowledge. And so I just wanted to share that for anybody who's listening to me. You got to have knowledge of that person. You got to study your mate and get to know them better. And you learn what they like, you give that to them. What they don't like, you learn how to, refrain from that.
I know you've helped somebody tonight with that. I was intending to go a couple other places, but man, that was, I sensed in my spirit that was helping some of the people. I wouldn't stop that. But I tell you what, we got about 7 minutes, and I don't know how you're gonna do this, but on your journey from Columbus to Atlanta, God led you on that journey to actually start the ministry where you are. And you said earlier, you founded that church.
Yes.
East Baptist Church. And I've been there.
Yes,
my church has been there. I came there before the church, and because we had talked back and forth, we talked a lot about what God was leading you to do. And at this point right now, God led you to do that.
Yes.
And so through this pandemic, I want to say that, how is Grace doing? I will just talk about that, because you know what, when we came down to Grace, so I can cut corners here, you taught me something that Sunday when you said, okay, you said, Doc, we're going to be in church in an hour. It's like God was already preparing you for the pandemic.
Right.
You said, we're going to be in here an hour. So you said you got 20 minutes. And
at least I gave you longer than that.
You gave me, and you put a clock. You said, watch the clock. And you know what? But now, but that's where I am right now. I'm trying to show people that, people got a certain attention span, but I want, from that experience, is when I started to really kind of back away from trying to expound on this, because I began to realize, give people the point, get to the point, and get out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what you taught me and made me change my whole direction. That Sunday, you said, watch the clock.
I gave you more than 20 minutes, though.
But you did watch the clock though.
Oh, and I watch it myself.
Yeah.
Every Sunday. Every Sunday I have the clock and I watch it to kind of monitor my time. Now, you know, when the Holy Spirit just sort of illuminates the place, then I don't even see the clock and the people don't either. But Grace is doing very well, Pastor. We're like everybody else ready to get back to some sense of normalcy. But unfortunately, I think we're going to have to live with a new normal. But we're doing well. People have been very supportive, and we've been innovative and creative in our approach to ministry and how we will do ministry in this pandemic. God led me to Atlanta, and I didn't know at the time. You know how, and I know you know, how ministry is like a maze, you know, and M-A-Z-E. And you know what I'm talking about a maze. You get in a maze, you don't know what's around the next turn.
Right.
And then you go, and you sort of get lost in the maze. Ministry is like a maze. For 31 years of ministry for me, it's been like a maze. I never know the direction that God is going to lead me. But while I'm in the maze, now I've learned how to tap into the GPS system. And that is, God is up above and he can see the whole maze and he can say, okay, turn left. Well, God, well, I got to turn left. Just turn left. Okay, turn left again. Well, God, look like if I turn right out, you know, and he leads me. So little did I know that when God moved me to Atlanta, as you said, I had been preaching for the Mount Pleasant Church, doing that revival for 7 years straight. That pastor had been there about 50 years and he's ready to retire. So now he asked me, would I succeed him at the church? I turned him down for 3 years. No, I don't want to come to Atlanta. I mean, I'm doing good where I am. Southside was good. I was good. So why should I leave? But then the Lord touched my heart. And then when he first asked me, I was in the process of going through a divorce. And I really didn't want to deal with it then. I went through the divorce. He asked me again. No, I'm not ready to go. My church has really been good to me, nursing me, you know, the next year, no. And then right before Tamara and I were to get married, he asked me, say, I went back to do the revival. It was in July. He said, now the church, you know, I hadn't retired yet. I'm waiting on you. He said, no, you know, but I'm gonna have to do something. I said, Doc, give me 1 more year. I said, I feel like God is leading me here now. And he went 51 years. He went a year over, waiting on me to come. And so I took the church, but I knew, even when I took it, though it was a good church, God had blessed us, we grew. I just knew that that was not final. You know how you know? And I didn't know what God was going to do because I was in the maze, but I knew he was going to do something. And I was there for 6 years. And at the time, Billy, I got 1 church, 2 locations, 3 services on Sunday. I'm preaching, got a driver to drive me 25 minutes to the other location. They already started. By the time I get there, I got to walk straight from the car to the pulpit, preach again, get out of that one and go back. And I'm doing this every Sunday. And ministry was growing. Everything was going very well. And God said, okay, it's time for you to leave. And long story short, I left and God told me to start Grace. And I started Grace. And Pastor, I'm happier that I have the best church in the world. I ain't had a deacon fight in 7 years. I ain't had no church fight. And you know, we get sick of that mess. I mean, we get sick of the bureaucracy of church. You know, I got so sick of it. I was at a point, Doc, and it's time. I know the time is. I'll say this and I'm done. I was at a point where I had said, I'm 54 years old. I was letting it go at 55.
Mm.
I had said to my wife and to whatever I have, I can't go past 55. You know, these churches, and I've had good churches, but I've always had to deal with bureaucracy. A deacon board that want to tell you what to do and all of this. And Doc, it drains the poor pastor. Anybody listening to me, you will kill your pastor with that kind of foolishness. And I just had made up my mind, Billy, 55, Lord, I'm out. I'm doing something else. I don't know. I'll travel the road preaching, singing, writing books, but I don't know what I'm going to do. But it will not be pastoring. But now, Doc, I don't know when I'm going to retire. They're going to have to roll me out of grace, because grace affords me to do so much by way of ministry, Doc. We had a survivor's prayer walk yesterday on our own campus. I have just built a nature trail, 1.3 mile nature trail, because I got 54 acres.
I know you got 54 acres.
And I built, you've been there. I took you all around. So I got a nature trail, Doc, down through the woods. We own the woods. Down through the woods, circle back around, come around, go to our pond. We have a pond that is stocked with catfish. Y'all better not be sneaking to my pond either. Fish. And it goes around the pond. And my members, hundreds of members yesterday, walked for breast cancer because of the virus, we didn't want to get in the big crowd. My church, Doc, it allows me to do ministry. My board of directors don't fight with me and all of that. And so, Doc, God had to leave. It took, and I'm like, God, why did you take so long? I got gray hair now. My nerves is bad now. It took so long to get me to this point, but now I'm here, and we'll be celebrating 7 years, Doc, next month. We're 7 years old, and wow. It's a major ministry.
Wow.
And
I know.
Best time of my life, brother.
Man, we're gonna try to get down there to see you then. 7 years, we're gonna try to get down there to see you. Let me know what the service looks like. Let me know what it looks like, and what we're gonna do, we'll start right there, because that's why I want you to pick up when you do this workshop with us. You're gonna talk about grace and how it evolved, and when we'll talk more. But but we got you right to the point tonight to what we want you for this workshop. So right. I'm saying to you tonight before everybody, Pastor McFarland will be back to talk to us about church development and how to actually grow, how to start a church and how to grow the church. So to see where you are right now and knowing that God led you to do that, that's what we'll pick up during the workshop.
Sounds good, man. Listen, man, I appreciate you having me tonight, and all of
Thank you so much, man.
Listening. May the Lord bless you. And I say to everybody, follow your dreams. If God put it in you, I don't care how difficult it seems to be, put it in you, you follow your dreams. And don't let your setbacks become a setup for your comeback.
Yeah, let your setback become a setup for your comeback.
There you go. Bless you, my friend.
God bless you all. Listen, we'll see you everybody next Sunday night. We got a big family planning financial session for you next Sunday night, and you don't want to miss it. So thank you, Pastor McFarland.
Thank you.
And we'll see you all. Thank you.
And bye, Teresa. Keep him straight now. I know you over there somewhere. You didn't put your face on. You didn't put her face on the camera, but I know she's over there Trust telling me. You what to do.
She right there.
I know her. I know. That's my girl. I know her. I love you. All right, y'all be blessed.
Good night. God bless y'all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, man. All right.